Good morning, Shine Campus. Welcome to the Coffee Hangout. I hope everybody's having a good start to the week. Monday, yesterday, and then today, Tuesday, getting off to a good start. So today I had a topic because um, one of the things that we do in business wise is you try to get involved into communities, and I think that's made my algorithms. Is that how you say algorithms? Algorithms go a little bit crazy about the stuff that it presents to me. And one of the things that came across my feed was somebody asking, as a therapist, how people felt, how other therapists felt about um, accepting gifts. And um, I mean, every state's different, but in California, um, it's an ethical issue, like meaning you have to consider how it harms the client, what you're receiving, what's the reason, all that stuff. So, anyways, the answers on the scenario got me thinking about how much therapy just doesn't work, or how much counseling just doesn't work. And the reason it's not, I don't think it's just the counseling itself. Um, I think it's a lot of times about the people, because there was a lot of people who, to me, had answers that were beneficial to the people that we serve. And then there were a lot of people who had answers to um, the ethics that they follow, right? And there's, to me, uh, for me at least, I'm going on the side of being able to serve people and not necessarily worry about whatever ethics or laws are in place. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I want to break the law or I don't care about ethics or those kinds of things. It has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is, I think that we could understand like the spirit of a rule and go with the thing that means benefit other people. So, for instance, if somebody is trying to give you a gift, um, I think that it's a little bit crazy for us to think that there's there's a good idea for them not to give the gift. And part of that has to do with the things that we've talked about previously on this channel, like abundance mindset and lack mindset and those kinds of things. It's not an unhealthy thing for people to give gifts. Now, the reason they may be giving the gift is unhealthy, um, but to be honest, to turn it into something else is just kind of harsh, or has more to do with us as the counselor than anything else. So, um, what I mean by that, well, there are three things that we need to be doing to fulfill our lives. One of them is contribute, another one is connect, and another one is to create. And if somebody comes up with in their mind, which to me that's creating, that they want to give a gift, which that's contribution, when they feel connected to somebody, which is going to be you, because they're telling, going to be the therapist, because you're being, you're in their life and they're telling you the deepest stories, then that's what's supposed to happen. And for us to turn that into any kind of um, harshness, or for us to say like, hey, there needs to be a limit on that. I think some people were saying like there's a, if it's over $50, it's not okay. In some states it's illegal. And I'm thinking like, what's $50 to somebody? Meaning uh like, you can't put a price on this cup right here. Like, I'm that the value of this cup, to me, this is my favorite coffee cup, it might be more than $50. And according to my mentor, everything's paid with offers, so everything is equal. So if you buy me a flight, that's the same thing as you giving me a toothpick, right? So I think that the idea of trying to put a value on what's okay is not the best process. Um, and then it kind of hinders people from really thriving. So if I'm spending time in therapy trying to figure out whether a gift, or trying to make somebody realize why or why not that that's the wrong thing, I think I'm the one kind of creating more than what somebody else needs, right? And And so I recognize that. I think that that's part of some of the hardship that comes in or comes with, trying to figure out what therapist we're going to find. Like, we never know exactly who we're going to run into, or what's the reason, um, or or like what's the reason they're going to come up with to figure out if we're wrong. And so as a person, I'm saying being willing to navigate through all of that, and don't be afraid to break up with somebody therapeutically that isn't necessarily fitting for you. Just to go back to that idea. So for me, the way I feel about gifts is give all you want to. And I want to teach the idea that says create, contribute, and connect are the things that we need to be thriving. And so how do you do more of that? Right. And then the other part of connecting is a giving aspect. So if you think about, how do I actually, what's the reason that I love so much, right? For my children, for instance, it's because I've given so much to them, right? I've given time to them. I've given a lot of things to them. Well, if I'm thinking more of the rules and about how to follow rules, how am I going to help somebody to understand the ways that love happens? And if I'm just helping somebody understand their illness, like for instance, if I say the reason you give is because that's what you were taught in abuse, right? Um, that's not necessarily going to help somebody to understand how to thrive. The reason you give is not because you were taught that in abuse. The reason you would give is because that's a natural way of being, um, for us as people. Now, did somebody misuse that? And that part might be true, where somebody misused that or took advantage of what you naturally have as a gift, um, to yourself, to be able to connect and contribute to other people, right? But for us to take people's natural ability to grow themselves and be abundant and turn it into something that is harsh, as I guess as leaders, as as people who should be creating and helping people to love and grow, it's harsh. So I mean, what does this have to do with me? I mean, to me, I see that and it reminds me, that therapy really doesn't have a high rate of success in, um, marriages. Like, most marriages come into therapy and they're not successful, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons that it's not necessarily successful is people usually come whenever it's so bad, that this is kind of their last straw, and whenever it's their last straw, it's not like somebody outside of your marriage is going to really help it at that point in time. And then I think that another part of that is that a lot of times a therapist is going to try to teach you skills at a time where you need essence, right? So that's actually a huge deal, is that as therapists, we know a lot of skills, we know a lot of ways, to help you say the right thing, and the communication strategies and those kinds of things. But what we don't usually go to is the essence, and mostly because, um, God isn't something that people usually talk about in therapy, unless it's a religious counselor. Um, and then the other part is a lot of therapists just don't know that they're coming from going to school, doing their life the best that they can, and then they're teaching you the lessons of their life. And so wherever they are is where they're trying to accidentally lead you to, whether they like it or not. Um, so that makes it really, really hard for you, once you are having challenges in your relationship, to go to a therapist who's going to teach you skills and lead you from their life concepts and knowledge and book concepts. Because in the books, it's not necessarily your life, it's best practices, right? So that makes it challenging, that makes it not successful. Another reason I think that marriage counseling is not successful, and this is kind of diving back into what a piece of what I just said, which is, um, there is no God concept. So you might not have to say the words God, for somebody to move necessarily, but honestly, if you're going to get better in your relationship, you need essence pieces. What that looks like specifically in your marriage is, you need to be able to understand that this is not a skill problem. You don't lack communication skills. You don't lack, the know of, should I cheat or should I Should I not? You don't lack the idea of, is this compatibility, or is this because we're in two different phases of our life. This is not that's not what this issue is about. What the issue is about in your relationship is, can I get better or be better and stare at that more than I stare at who my partner is, or who they aren't, or where they're at in their life. That's what the real is. That's the real issue. And so you're going to come into therapy, and a lot of times therapists will treat the problem and not the person, and deal with the underlying cause, right? And that's interesting because a lot of people say they'll treat the symptom, and I think that they do. They try to treat the symptom and they try to treat the problem, but it's not really the problem, right? So that's the challenge, is that people will come into therapy, and we don't necessarily go below the rules, below the ethics, below what we've learned. We just stay with that surface, and so it makes a not success rate. So, or not a not success rate for us. So it's hard. I think people are coming in really looking for something, and frankly, people use it. And this is our third thing: people use it as a hospital type scenario, and therapists propel that concept, like, come in and I will help you type scenario. And it's just not how it works. It's not how it works. It's not that you go into therapy and it's going to give you some magic pill or some magic way, um, based on skills, right? You're going to have to turn around who you've been being in order for you to actually have a different chance. And frankly, a lot of times that's just not, it's not the case. It's not what's being created in therapy. So yeah, that got me on a little bit of a rant because I I'm upset to see like what gets perpetuated by other therapists and other helpers, and the trouble that they have to understand abundance. I think that's probably the biggest thing is, as therapists, as too many therapists, I won't say that every single one, but too many therapists don't see abundance as a way of understanding how we need to be in life. Too many therapists are not um, focused on the right thing whenever you're developing your marriage pieces. And so I think that's what's different about what I do in therapy, is I'm not concerned necessarily about how it's supposed to be done, and I'm more worried about how you're going to grow. In fact, I have a saying that says we need to have love over agenda, and I don't disclude myself from that. I include myself. Whatever it means for me to be the most loving to you as a person, that's the key. As we're growing relationships, that's the focus. Is to create love instead of have this agenda item that says I somehow need you to be like me, or I somehow need you to to do things in a rule order. Can you imagine that your life is going to be predicted by the ethics and the laws of therapeutic government? I think that's crazy, right? That your life gets to be predicted by that. And so I think therapy needs to change that as a whole, and that those concepts. We can't let hurt people, which means that the people who were hurting are probably the reasons that the rules are in place. We can't let hurt people guide the lives of other people who are trying to thrive. Just can't happen, right? So um, yeah, there has to be a change. On the Shine campus, I have a how to become a power couple challenge that you guys can join. Um, and then also this month, I'm focused on the individual, and I created a challenge for that as well, an individual challenge where you become a better partner in your relationship. And so those things are available to you guys to really help start thinking differently about what's going on, and change things for the better in your life. I mean, you hold that key. It might not feel like it, and you might be staring so much at what's wrong that you think that you're powerless to change it. But I promise you, as soon as You take your eyes off of all the things that are wrong, which are outside of you, and you start staring on the inside of you and paying more attention to that, it starts growing like crazy. And once that grows, nothing can stop you. And the courage that you have and the belief that you have in who you are and whose you are starts rising up and growing so big that you don't feel powerless anymore. And you could be in a lot of different situations, and the change that happens, you start seeing the gratitude side of it and giving yourself a different chance to really thrive. And this is all areas. I'm not just talking about relationships, but I'm including relationships. I'm including your money. I'm including your health. All those things are definitely possible areas of growth if you're able to grab onto the right things and have the right focus. All right, you guys. We'll see you guys later. Enjoy your Tuesday, and we'll talk to you soon.